Awesome. We're live.
Yes. All right. It's just loading because technology is finished. All right. We are officially live on our YouTube channel. So that's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and get our music started while we give people a couple more minutes to join in through YouTube or all right. I have officially faded out the music. Let me stop my screen share. And I think we can actually go ahead and get started. Just as I said, we do everything here live on Green Table Talk, but the really amazing thing is that we get to record for one, but we also have this live stream through our YouTube channel. So for YouTube, we get to come back to it. Whoever didn't get a chance to join this super amazing talk live will definitely be able to go back to it. So that's really the great thing, is that our outreach will be even greater when we have people listening in. But I do want to go ahead and get started for this super awesome talk with April Ellis. So this is actually our second Green Table Talk ever. So you're just our second guest on this show, but I do want to thank you so much, April, for joining us. My name is Diamond Spratling, and I am the founder and the president of Millennials for Environmental Justice, and for EJ for short, advocating for all things environmental, social, and health justice, specifically in Black and Brown communities across the US, but most importantly, getting Black and Brown millennials involved in the subject matter of all things environmental justice. So our Green Table Talk allows us to have these candid conversations with amazing people of color to talk about their work, their experiences, their projects, research, whatever they may be doing, and how exactly that impacts environmental justice, and really, what can us regular folk do? How can we get involved? How can we learn from you? So April, I'm super excited and super thankful to have you here on our show live, and I'm gonna go ahead and toss it over to you to do a quick introduction.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Diamond. We go back from our master's degree at Emory, so this has been a special moment for me because I get to see you. It's been like a year and God knows when because of this
Yes.
pandemic. So
Yes.
I'm really happy to see your face and to see everybody on the Zoom call and also live. And if you're watching this later on, I'm so happy that you could join us. Just a quick introduction about me. My name is April Ellis. I am a PhD student at the University of South Florida College of Marine Science. So I'm here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I just finished up my first year. So now it's going into more of my experiment side and doing a lot of work. I specialize, well, my research focuses on microplastics and how that can affect our marine environment, especially those in sea squirts, which is my model system, and also mainly how it's affecting their gut microbiome and just a lot about how our bodies can interact with that. But I'll go into more detail with that later. And just a little bit more about me. I have my Master's of Public Health from Emory University and Environmental Health, and I also hold a Bachelor's of Science in Coastal Environmental Science from Louisiana State University, LSU for short. And I'm just excited to be here and talk all things environmental justice and my research.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, April. You said that you just finished your first year of your PhD program. That's a huge accomplishment. How was that? How did your first year go?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. Everything was online this year. Very blessed that I didn't have to go in person. And so that was a little bit of a challenge because taking classes online is a lot more work than it would be in person. And not being able to see people in my cohort because of, social distancing and also just not wanting to be around each other before we had vaccines. So that was a little bit of a challenge, a good bit, but I made it through. I got through my classes. I did really well. And now I'm in my lab. I was very fortunate that my lab is small in terms of people. So I got to go in and be there as active as possible in there, as safe as possible. So that was the best part of this year, is just getting started on my research.
Wow, yes, love it. Super awesome. Congratulations again. So speaking of your research, that's kind of where I want to start off with, because I've done quite a bit of research in my past, but I feel like you're like on a whole nother level with this research. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be able to relate in not really understanding exactly what that STEM and that biology and microplastics research really means. So what is microplastics, honestly?
Yeah, so let me explain this to you guys.
Okay.
So microplastics are considered plastic that is less than 5 millimeters in size. So there's two different types of there's microplastics and nanoplastics. Most times microplastics are when you say like big bottles, water bottles, or nanoplastics bigger than 5 millimeters degrade in the environment, and they get to a smaller size of 5 millimeters or less. And so that's what we consider microplastics. And that can also be fibers from our shirts, the microfibers in our shirts that come off when we wash clothes, micro beads from when you wash your face, the face shields and the different washing and cleaners that has those micro beads in there. Those are considered micro beads as well. So it's just a little tiny little balls that can break down, biodegrade naturally and unnaturally in our environment, because they don't naturally degrade. They're not naturally biodegradable, so it takes a very long time.
Wow.
So the big thing about microplastics that a lot of people don't understand is the fact that it's not just, plastic water bottles, or it's not just trash bags that we get from the grocery store. Microplastics is the long-term impacts, the long-term biodegrading of those products, and the toxicity of those products in general. So that's a little bit about what microplastics are.
Okay. Wow. I feel like I just learned something new. So thank you for that. That's really interesting. Okay. Wow. So microplastics. So how in the world did you get involved in this type of work? Because I feel like it's so unique. Like, you're the only person I've ever heard of doing this type of work. So it seems really innovative. So how did you get involved in this work, and why are you so passionate about it anyway?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories to tell, just because it comes from the heart. So I went to school, I went to my undergrad at LSU in Louisiana, and Louisiana has one of the largest populations of Black and brown people in the US. And so I fell in love with the culture in Louisiana as a whole. And one of the biggest things culturally is Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is a season where you just have a lot of fun. There's lots of parades. It's the week before Lent starts. So the state of Louisiana is a very Catholic state. And so the whole idea is that you're supposed to go a little crazy, have fun, get out your sins, and then you come back during the holy season and you repent your sins and you're a good person and you're very holy. So I really loved the atmosphere around it. But Mardi Gras is a big season of plastic beads. So you know the necklaces that you wear?
Yes, love those.
Yeah, yeah, they're really pretty, but they're really bad for the environment.
Oh no.
So when I went to school there during my senior year, we had a capstone project and in the College of Coast and Environment, and we were decided that you have to pick an environmental issue that you're passionate about and talk about it and how can we make the change. Well, I was like, well, I love Mardi Gras so much, but I know that our sewage system in New Orleans is not very well managed at all. So what happens is they have a sewage system, but it doesn't naturally go down, and it goes down into the Gulf of Mexico most of the time, because the state is below sea level. So what happens is there's not a lot of adequate drainage, and all of those beads kind of get stuck, and then they go straight into the Gulf, into the waterways that go straight to the Gulf of Mexico. So I wanted to know, what is that doing to our environment, but also like, what is that doing to our health? Because that water that we drink or we get that's repurposed into our water bottles and the stuff that we like to play in and fish in, really a lot of the crawfish and all of that stuff comes from the Gulf of Mexico. So that's kind of how I got involved. And I was approached by one of the biology professors at LSU who was working on a biodegradable bead made from algae, which is natural in our environment. So he was like, hey, one of my researchers left out our algae that we were working on, and it kind of formed this clump, kind of looking similar to like a little tiny bead that you find on the necklaces. And he said, I wonder if we could do something about this. And so I talked with him, and he came in and also gave us a talk as well for my final project on how we could find biodegradable solutions to the plastic beads, because what happens is they're just thrown everywhere, and literally on the street.
It's crazy.
On the street, everywhere. I have tons of pictures of me just naturally standing there, and there's just like trash everywhere. And they don't recycle any of this. There's not really a recycling system. There's not really a recycling system there to pick it up. So what happens is it clogs the drains. It doesn't break down, and then it doesn't naturally break down, and then that's what causes microplastics, because the longer it goes down, the environment's going to try to break it down as much as it can, but it's not going to go away for a long time. So that's what got me interested in it, and more just like how it affects us as humans. I wanted to know, the environment is important, but we're ingesting this. So what is it causing?
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, I love that this one like small capstone project that happened like 4-6 years ago kind of like, you know, expanded out your interest in wanting to look more into microplastics. That's really amazing. And I mean, I feel like for me, like, I mean, I've been in New Orleans before, and like I've seen how crazy, like just throwing the beads out, like it's fun. It's absolutely fun, but you're exactly right. No one thinks about like the environmental impacts and more so the health impacts of, you know, I mean, we're just out there trying to have fun. But to have someone like you that has recognized that it's such a big environmental issue and health issue, I think that is amazing. We need more people like you. We need like a whole army of you, because that's absolutely crazy. So are they using the biodegradable beads now, or
so,
I feel like that needs to be a law?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was. So it costs a lot more money to get the algae to grow to that size and come together, because beads in general, they're very cheap. You can get them from China for like pennies on the dollar and mass quantity amounts. So people have to really want to invest in it. When I left, he was working on getting it patented by LSU and to have the LSU logo imprinted on it, because LSU plays a huge role in Louisiana and people love LSU. It's just how the culture is. And so that way more people would be more incentivized because it'd be so unique. So it's very hard to say because it's part of the culture in Louisiana, and plastic isn't going to go away. And I know this. I'm not, it's a very integral part of our medical system. A lot of stuff that we use in the ER and surgeries is plastic, well, made from some forms of plastic. So it's never going to go away, but we can mitigate how it's made and how is it disposed of and how can we break it down.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I think for your PI who's working on that, the person at LSU, to understand that the importance of branding and like marketing LSU to get people to use the product is so smart. And I think that just in the environmental field and health field, we don't think about those marketing tactics that more big businesses do, but to think about that, that's really awesome. So I guess I'm curious to know, so as far as the microplastics, so who's exposed, like, have you seen like differences? So I know you talked about like LSU or in Louisiana, for example, have you seen different disparities in who's exposed to microplastics, or is it really just like anyone can be?
It's literally just everyone, and it's penetrated pretty much all of human life, not even just human life, the environment around us. And so that's kind of where it doesn't necessarily, there's not one person that it can penetrate, it penetrates us all. It's just more who can be more exposed to it. So that's where environmental justice comes into play, is because we know, well, at least a lot of people should know, that Black and brown communities are almost always put in positions where they're around toxic waste dumps or hazardous areas, because that's where low income or low socioeconomic status homes are because of their property taxes, right? And so what happens is they're around areas that don't care about, the government doesn't care, or their state doesn't care about where they live, because they're getting money by putting this plant there because it's cheap, because they don't care about the people. And what happens is all that toxic waste, the plastic that they're creating, such as from oil fields, the fracking process of oil is how plastic is made. And so what happens is these people are exposed to what they're eating. So like the fish that they're eating, not just fish, but the water that they're ingesting, and just about how much more they're exposed than, say, a family that lives in a nice neighborhood in, say, Southern California, one example, where they have really great laws in California.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Their laws are model laws. A lot of times that's because where do most of the people with money live at? In these richer counties, Southern California counties. And they're not necessarily focused on the counties where Black and brown people live, which is a problem, and that's not okay. And that's what I want to change with my research, is to say, this is what's causing health disparities, and this is what's causing in our body, but also this is how we can mitigate those changes, and how does the government need to step in and change those laws.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, governance interference is so, like, in situations like this, is so crucial, because we need someone to step up and really take that leadership and hold these big companies accountable, who just think, oh, I'm about to build a power plant here, or a factory here, incinerator there, because it's cheaper, lower property taxes. Like, that doesn't make any type of sense at all. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. So I guess that kind of leads to my next question of, what exactly would you say are some of the health or human health impacts of things like microplastics? Like, is this something we can die from? Like, how worried should we be here?
I would say that we should be very worried, because a lot of the stuff we don't know. And so that's something that this research is so very new, especially when it comes to human sides, because we can't do research on our human intestines, right? Like we can't naturally go in and open somebody up and see. So because this research has been new for the past 10, 15, 20 years, it's still very much building. But we do know that it is inside our bodies. There was a recent study done in 2020 where they found it in the placenta of moms that were pregnant. They found microplastics in that placenta, which means that it's in our bloodstreams, but we don't have enough research to see what is it causing. And so that's kind of what I look at using my model system with the C-squirts. My research deals with at USF Health is where my main lab is, so the Health Sciences and Pediatrics department. And the reason that I'm kind of a mix between marine science and environmental health and public health wise is because our model system is a marine animal, but it relates very closely to small children. So the guts of inside Siona and C-squirts are very similar to small children and how their immune system works. So what we like to manipulate or see is how is our immune system reacting to different contaminants, just different things that are happening in our system. And can our system naturally break it down? Can there be just different, can it go across our body systems? What about the bacteria inside of our gut? And so that's what I look at it as, the more of that like host immunity. Is there a way that we can see what is it doing in our bodies? And so that's kind of more of what my research is based off of. Is looking at my marine organism to compare it to small children. And that's my leap way of figuring out, okay, it's working this way in their body system, then it's going to be very similar to how humans are.
Wow, that's outstanding. That's crazy. So I just want to backtrack just a little bit because you said there's not a lot of research out there. Like this is a fairly new topic. Like I think you mentioned just like 10 years ago, things started talking about it. So how does that make what you're doing, even more difficult? Because first of all, it sounds pretty difficult and very intense research. So how does that kind of impact what you're doing? Like, do you feel like it's more like trial and error? Do you feel like you're able to look at a lot of different pieces of literature and go off things, or like, what does that even look like?
Yeah, so there's several literature papers, but there's not a ton. And so a lot of this is trial and error, and it's more or less, okay, well, this didn't work, so I need to figure something else out. It's not giving me the results necessarily that I want, but also it's telling me something that I can talk about more. So it makes it a lot more difficult because we don't know like how different sizes of microplastics and different fibers of microplastics affect our organism. We're still understanding that side of it. So whether microfibers, so the fibers in our clothes, affect their gut microbiome, or whether it's just plastic beads, which is what I'm researching, tiny microbeads, different sizes from 1 millimeter to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, is more of like on that side. And then also the shapes and the colors, how they were produced. But that's the exciting part about this research, is that it's all new and that my face is like out there and a lot of people are trying to get involved in it. And really, what can I change, especially when it comes to our communities and fighting for it? Environmental justice to me means a lot of combining my work future-wise, public health-wise, not just marine environment, but how can we make the change on that local level so that it doesn't affect the changes that we're going to see in our bodies can be mitigated, and how can we reduce that risk of coming in contact with microplastics?
Right. Wow, exactly. And I mean, I love that you're a person that is very interdisciplinary, in which you understand the importance of intersecting this public health, human health side of things, the environmental, social justice side of things, but also with marine biology, because it's all interconnected. It's so important that we look at all different aspects of microplastics. Like, and I think that a lot of people don't do that. We're always working separately, and then it's like, well, why haven't we seen any improvements? Why haven't we seen, why aren't we doing better?
Right.
We're not working together. We're all working on our own separate things instead of thinking about how interconnected they are, right? Like
Exactly. It's just connecting with other people that are also in the realm of your research or even just are interested in it. And that's why I think I network so much to be around people that want to be interested or have some insight that I don't have, and I can give them some insights, because that's how we further our research and also make the change, right?
Yeah.
The whole reason I wanted to get my PhD was so that I could advocate for my research, right? I don't want to just be producing papers that, just constantly producing it in the lab, because that's not who I am. I'm doing my PhD so I can say I have all this background knowledge. I did the work. Now let me show you what I did, and let me go to our legislation. Let's go get this thing done so we can create that change. That's how it's going to actually work.
We might have to quote you on that one, because that was a powerful message right there, and it doesn't get enough credit. The like issue of some researchers or people just wanting to just, oh, let me just get as many publications and many papers and just research as I can. I don't care what happens to it if it just sits on someone's desk. What in the actual, like, that makes no type of sense whatsoever. The whole idea of research is so that it can be used for implementation and policy, but that goes over so many people's heads. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I love that you have that mindset. And you said you want to be a professor one day, right?
Yeah. So I definitely want to be a professor so I can advocate for my research, but also to show other minority students that they can do this field. I mean, I'm less than 5% of the marine science field, and honestly, there's less than that. I just don't know the exact percentage. There's so few of us in the field, and it's because there's so many stop gates on people of color being in this field. They put so much, you have to have all of this knowledge and you have to have all this stuff. You need to come from a prestigious program or something like that. And what I tell them is, all of this stuff that I'm doing in my lab right now is completely new to me, right? I was not a microbiologist for my undergrad, or I wasn't in the lab every day, but I presented that to my PI. He was like, that's fine. You don't need to have that in my lab. And so I want to inspire them, because I only had one Black professor, and that was during my master's degree at Emory. And so, which is a crazy sight to see, because there was it was always me. I was always one of the only people of color in a room. So I wanted them to see that they don't have to be the only person. So there's no longer just one person, one Black person or one brown person that's sitting there like, I don't belong here. And then people just looking at you, because you belong, and you are smart enough, and you can do it. And you can, go through the bureaucracy side of that and just get out and do what you want to do and make the change. So I advocate a lot for that. And that's just something that I am passionate about as well.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I think that is exactly right. I mean, imposter syndrome is so real, especially in the STEM field. Like just as you said, there's not a lot of us out there, and the representation is so small. So it's hard, especially just have, like, I can't even, begin to understand the amount of pressure even that you may even feel to make sure that you succeed. Like, that stuff is real, especially when we talk about from our health perspective, our mental health, feeling like you don't belong, or like, oh shoot, I'm not, able to perform as best as I usually do. So now everyone's gonna be looking at me. It's like, that's an extra added stress in addition to all the amazing innovative work that you're already doing. So I mean, if you like to speak on that, definitely.
I think it's something that it needs to change. And I'm open and honest with both of my PIs on my projects, my co-major professors, and telling them that the pressure is so overwhelming at times, because you can't just be normal. Like, we can't be normal in our field. And that's what sucks, is that we can't just be a normal grad student or be a normal researcher. We have to publish in the highest journals. And even when we do, we still get denied from positions, because apparently that's not well enough. But another student that might not be of color will publish in an average journal, and then it'll be like, oh my gosh, they just did this amazing work. Like, so that's definitely something I deal with on a weekly basis, daily basis, is just understanding, it's okay, but I do understand my worth. So I understand that your opinion doesn't matter because I know that my work stands up to everybody else's. So if you don't like it, then that's fine. You don't have to look at it. I don't like, it's not going to change my goals in life. Your opinion isn't the end all be all of things. But I do think that that's the part of academia and research that really needs to change. It really, and I am so open and honest about this with all the people in my college and just people I talk to and say, why is it that I have to go above and beyond, but you're not asking other students to do that? Or why is it that, you know, you have to check up on me to see if I'm okay, but you're not doing this to other students, right? At least for me, but I know most Black people or brown people in a field, all we want to do is be normal. Be normal. Literally just be a normal person, but we can't be normal because they're staring at us or they're like, do you need help? Or what's going on? And it's like, I mean,
it's tough. It's so tough. But I mean, for one, I appreciate your transparency and just being open to feel like you're in a safe space where you can say that. And even at your university, I mean, that says a lot that you feel like you are able to openly have those discussions with your colleagues. So that is definitely really great. So keep doing you. I love this Black girl magic. I mean, you are literally amazing. So I appreciate that. So before I jump into more questions that I have, I do want to open it up to our audience in case anyone has any questions. Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can also drop your questions down in the chat. I'm sure that April would love to answer any questions that you have. So go ahead and drop those questions in the meantime. So while we wait for that, I did just want to ask, I guess maybe just get your thoughts or opinions on, because when I think of like, I guess microplastics or maybe just coastal environmental health, I think of indigenous populations. And so I wonder just kind of if you have any thoughts on the disparities there and what we can do, or, you know, what disparities we see in that, you know, kind of that sector, and kind of if your work even has to do with you know, helping indigenous populations, for example.
Yeah, so my work personally right now in my PhD does not currently, but I do understand and like to advocate for that side because look, the indigenous population, like one example is fishing, right? Fishing nets cause a lot of can be a big factor when it comes to plastic because of the nets themselves and they're shedding, right? Constantly. Big fish companies, that's one of a bigger problem is that the nets themselves are constantly shedding the fibers, right? And that's getting into our ocean. But that's also how not big fish companies, but indigenous populations get their food intake. And it's also a cultural aspect of their lives. So we can't tell them to stop fishing because then that would be like, that wouldn't be right? That's taking away somebody else. Right. We'd be taking it away. So it's more or less just saying, hey, you're fishing, maybe we can find alternatives to the way that they do fish or like the products that they use to fish. Or we can say, okay, that's fine. We just need to monitor different ways that you're eating, like the different fish that you're eating to see how much of the plastic is getting into, but also just around them, right? They do a lot of sustainable ways. They honor what the fish that they eat or the food that they eat, even where the water that they drink from. That is something that we need to take into consideration is that cultural awareness. Most people don't understand, researchers, I don't think they don't have a course in cultural awareness. You know, for me, Emory was a big proponent of understanding different people's cultures. So I think that's something that, you know, is important, and I will do in the future as well as when I'm finishing up my dissertation and writing it in for the overall impacts, because that's a big part of what I will be focusing on. How does this help us in human health overall wise? And so that's something that we need to break down and understand more ways that we can mitigate these issues in a cultural way. So yeah, I think that's something very important. And I do see a chat in here from Alex about how do I find mentorship in my field. Well, mentorship for me has come in a lot of different ways. When I was at LSU, I befriended the dean of my undergrad college,
Oh,
and he has been a huge mentor to me. I went to him when I was struggling in a class, and most people are terrified to go to their dean. But I was like, look, I need to graduate. I'm scared that I'm going to fail this class. But he ended up saying, you know what? This is not right how they were treating you in this class. And he fought so hard to make sure that this didn't happen to other students in our college, right? And also at Emory, I worked at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and both of my bosses were Black women. And I am so thankful they're both my mentors forever. I worked in the global health side, working on HIV and TB prevention, as well as the National Center for Environmental Health, actually doing research on microplastics and human health impacts, which was the first time ever. It still is. We're waiting to publish our paper very soon, so I'm excited about that. And she's a Black woman as well, and she's in a position of power, and she has her PhD, and she's been a huge mentor to me because she went through the process. She went through the same problems that I go through, and I text her all the time, and I'm like, please help me understand. I'm having a little breakdown. But mentorship for me comes from the people that I've surrounded myself with, and I reach out to people, right? When I see a person of color and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to meet you. How did you get through this? And even incoming students, I am like, okay, I am here. I don't want to bombard you, but if you ever need to talk to somebody, I've been through it, man. I've been through the whole up and down, I don't know what I'm doing because nobody's there to help me situation. So yeah, I think that's a big mentorship is a big role, and it helps to keep people going. If it wasn't for the people around me, it's so hard. It's very hard, and that's it. It's the number one thing.
wow. Yeah, that was a great question, Alex. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Mentorship is so important, and I think I really like your point, April, about reaching out, because there's people who reach out to us like, hey, let us know if you need anything, but it's our responsibility to actually reach out to them like, I'm drowning, I need help.
Right.
Please, how can you support me? I mean, that's so important, because there are really amazing people out there who are willing to help, but it's definitely up to us to actually take them up on that offer. So great question. Okay, so I just want to move on to kind of some of our closing questions as we wrap up. So I wanted to know, April, what would you like to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, I just want to leave you guys with an important message that microplastics and plastic pollution, not even just microplastics, microplastic pollution or plastic pollution in the environment, what you do makes an impact right now, but also 5 to 10 years from now. So I want everyone to understand that there are small changes that you can make in your daily life to reduce the amount of plastic that gets into the streets, that gets into our waterways, and then eventually gets into our own bodies that are there right now. And so that's one of the main things I advocate for, or one of the other things I advocate for is that there are small changes that you can make, whether that's when you go out to eat, not using plastic silverware, bringing reusable silverware, asking them for silverware at the restaurant instead of plastic ones, or drinking out of a reusable canister like I have here that you can refill with water, and just different little tiny things, making sure you recycle, you don't put trash on the ground. If you see a piece of trash, go pick it up and throw it away correctly. But that's one of the more important things that I want everyone to get a hold of, and that this research is so new, and I can't wait for other people to see what comes out of this, and that there are things that we can change in our own health, because we don't know yet exactly what it's causing. And when we do know, and what I hope to know, is what's going to change when I show them how it's affecting our health. So that's kind of one of the two important aspects that I want everyone to take away, is that you can do things to change how our environment works, and also to reach out to different places to help out, right? Cleanups around your area. How can you advocate for your local government to change laws? That's something that really can change, right? We need to have more grassroots people out there. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All amazing points. So if like for me, I feel like super motivated and excited to do something now. So I mean, what resources do you know of, or like what can I read? What can I do? Are there any like talks, any like social
Yeah.
media pages or something? And I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't know off the top of your head, you can send them over to me too, and I'll send it out to everyone. But I'd
Yeah.
love to know.
I definitely will send you a list of just
Okay.
different organizations. I know that I worked for the Surfrider Foundation, which has different chapters all across the US and overseas. And they focus on protecting our ocean, beaches, and waves. But they really, a lot of times, most of their research, most of their focus from the nonprofit comes for plastic pollution and environmental policies in those states. So they have chapters that advocate for changes, such as plastic waste bans or plastic bag bans that have passed all
Yes.
over in different cities, which
Love
should be an
those.
automatic thing, I think.
Yes.
Or changing how different restaurants are using their straws. So no longer using plastic straws. Paper straws are a great different alternative. And then also just getting out, if you just doing a quick Google search around, you say plastic pollution in my area grassroots companies, right? There are tons of them that I don't even know, like I can't point out because they're so small and do such good work.
Yeah.
Not just because they're small, but they do such great work and cleanups in your area. Just being out there and learning more, right? Doing your own research and just saying, hey, what are some things that I can do to change this? And also, who do I need to talk to? Who in my legislation? Who is
Yes.
in our offices right now that care about environmental policies?
Mhm.
Like that is something, and voting, right? Voting is so
Yes.
important.
Yes.
So important. So I think those are several resources, and I will definitely send over a list. I have a running list of different people, especially in Georgia and some here in Florida. But in your own state, there are a lot of, wherever you are on the top, there's bound to be several nonprofits that are working, or grassroots organizations.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think a lot of us would benefit from that list and seeing like how we can get involved. But I just like wanted to ask before we wrap it up, why should we, as people of color, why should we care about plastic pollutions and things like that? Because I mean, it's easy to get feel like, oh, there's so many issues going on,
Right.
racial issues, police brutality, so many things like that. So how do I even have the room or even mental capacity to like, oh, I got to add one more thing to my list. I need to start caring more about plastic pollution. So, how should we navigate that? Or even how do you navigate through staying, motivated as a person of color to advocate for these issues?
Yeah, I stay motivated because at the end of the day, we've been so disproportionately affected by so many environmental issues. I
Mm,
mean, a prime example is Flint, Michigan. Like the whole water crisis there that still has yet to be fixed is a
mhm,
problem because it's a low income minority area. And
mhm,
that's something that I really want people to understand, is that it's not just about where you are, but every, like, the different people around you, minorities around you. These environmental issues, especially when it comes to water quality and quality of, what are we taking into our bodies, they don't want to fight for us, so we have
yeah,
to fight for us. And it's
yes,
something that people, I really hope that they understand, like, there's no quitting, because just saying that there's no point is not going to fix the issue, and we're only going to keep suffering like we have for a lot of years, right? Environmental racism is an ongoing problem, and that's something, that's a problem that we have to face on our own, and where environmental justice movements and
mhm,
speaking out to people and fighting so hard to say, hey, just because I don't live in an area that has high and, lives in mansions, doesn't mean that I can't be treated equally, right?
yeah,
Laws need to be focused on me as well. They
yeah,
should always be equal, not just the city, one city in America, because they have the richest parts of people,
yeah,
where the richest people live. And
mhm,
so that's why it's so important, to not give up, and to know that it's not just affecting you, it's
mhm,
affecting all people of Black and brown communities. Think about those small towns, right, that live near toxic waste dumps. They have no control. What are they, they're sitting there like, we don't know what to do. We're drinking this water because they say it's okay, but nobody's testing it,
Of course.
you know? So
Yes.
I think it's very important that we one most important thing, stay educated.
Mm.
Educate yourself. Always be doing some research or looking into things, because that's how we better ourselves in that issue.
Yeah. Wow, that was real right there. I appreciate that. More snaps for that comment as well. Well, thank you so much, April. I mean, I just want to allow you the opportunity to tell us how we can keep up with you or continue connecting with you. I mean, I know you and I have a close relationship, so we'll still be in contact, but I'm sure everyone else on the call who listens later is going to want to keep up with you as well.
Yeah, definitely. You guys can email me at any point. It is aprilellis@usf.edu, and I'll send all this information to Diamond so she can put it out there. Also follow me on Twitter. I'm at @AprilEllis_. I'm very active on Twitter all the time, talking about different environmental racism and just environmental issues in general, and academia problems that are going on, and just my research, which is really cool as well. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me at April Ellis. I will send that information as well. And then on Instagram, at April_Ellis is my Instagram. So you can look me up and give me a follow. I really want to connect with everybody. So if you have any questions, don't feel free to reach out to me. I am by no means an expert in microplastics. I am working my way into that side of hopefully being an expert at one point of these days, but I do know quite a bit of information. And if I don't understand it, I will lead you to the right way to get to there.
Awesome. Wonderful. Love it. Thank you so very much, April. I mean, this has been absolutely amazing. I know M4EJ and everyone listening is extremely grateful to have you on this talk. I mean, everything that you said, I was just like snapping the whole time because it was so amazing. And I mean, wishing you the absolute best of luck in your research and everything that you continue to do, and cannot wait to call you Dr. Ellis.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. And again, it was so wonderful to talk to everyone and to see you, Diamond. So we'll be talking later on anyway.
Yeah, of course. Talk soon. And thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Be in touch with Millennials for Environmental Justice for our future Green Table Talks. Talk soon.
Awesome. Bye, guys.